If I were to wish for anything, I should not wish for wealth and power, but for the passionate sense of the potential, for the eye which, ever young and ardent, sees the possible. Pleasure disappoints, possibility never. And what wine is so foaming, what is so fragrant, so intoxicating as possibility? And this week's opening quote comes from Soren Kierkegaard. Welcome to Surviving the Matrix. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Maxwell Igan. It's a pleasure to be with you once again, and I'll be your host for the next hour. The universe is indeed a realm of possibility. It is a realm of endless possibility, and indeed the only thing that limits the creative potential of the universe and of ourselves is our belief of what is or is not possible. And if we really look at things realistically, folks, what we find, generally speaking, is that these beliefs are usually not our own. They're usually beliefs that come from an external source somewhere. They're other people's beliefs that we've been trained to go along with via the education system, via peer group pressure, via our social systems in general. But very often these ideas, these concepts of what is or is not possible are not ours. They are concepts that have been programmed into us by other people. They're other people's versions of reality. Now, you might hear this and think, well, that's all very well for you to say that, but science is science and physics is physics, and there are certain aspects of reality which function a certain way, and that's just the way it is. And it can't be denied, that's just the way it is. There are some things that are simply impossible. But really, folks, I would beg to differ. I think that absolutely anything is possible, and that what limits the creative potential of possibility is simply, as I said, the belief that we hold. And of course, when discussing what may or may not be possible, my mind always turns towards things such as the double slit experiment and the measurement problem, because the measurement problem and the double slit experiment both indicate that absolutely anything is possible, and that the outcome of any situation is determined by what belief system the observer adheres to. And the double slit experiment is, of course, a great example of this. And if you're not familiar with the double slit experiment, I suggest you Google double slit experiment and just check it out, because it's a pretty amazing sort of an experiment, and it indicates that the belief of the observer affects the outcome of any given experiment. And this is a profound understanding to have, folks. Once it sinks in, it truly is a profound realization. Now, in discussing belief and possibility, the late, great Terence McKenna once said, and I'm paraphrasing here because I can't remember the quote exactly, but he said that the world is made of words, and if you can understand words, you can control reality, or words to that effect. And this is, again, a very, very profound insight that Terence McKenna was offering people here, simply because most people think in language, and therefore the world that they experience, the external world that they experience, is indeed made of words. It's made of words because people think in language, and so therefore they think in words, and they use words to describe everything around them, and they use words to describe everything they know about reality. So therefore, right from the onset, people's understanding of reality and people's belief of what is or is not possible is based on their understanding of the language that they speak. And this is a very, very important thing to consider, folks, that people think in words, and if they don't understand their language properly, then of course they will never be able to understand reality properly. And again, folks, once this sinks in, and really sinks into people, it's a profound realization. But people don't understand words, they don't understand their language, and so they don't really realize what is and is not possible. Their concepts of what is and is not possible are constrained by their belief system. They're constrained by the parameters that science has told them reality must fit inside. And so they never have any real concept of what is or is not possible. And it's the same with freedom. It's the same with the state of our social systems, the same with the state of our consciousness, the same with the state of the control grid, the power that the so-called Illuminati have, the power that this system has over people. A lot of the power that it holds is simply people's belief that it has power over them, when really it doesn't. But if it can convince people that it does, then people will readily give their authority away. There's another wonderful statement that somebody made once. I'm not sure who it was. It may have been Delama de Veris, but someone said that if you assume a position of authority, people will readily give you that authority. And this is just an interesting character trait, an interesting part of human nature, that we do that. When someone appears to be an authority figure, whether they are or not, if they simply have that type of air about them, and they start giving us orders and telling us what to do, very often we will look to them for leadership and advice in future situations. That's just the way we do it. And this is a lot of what the controlling hand has done, ladies and gentlemen. They have assumed a position of authority, and they've tricked people into thinking and into believing that they actually are all-powerful, when nothing could be further from the truth. But many people believe the powers that be, or that believe they be, to be all-powerful, and that's just the way it is, and therefore they are, because these people give them that power. That's the way it works, folks. If you believe something is all-powerful, then you are powerless to do anything against it, and you never will be motivated or feel empowered enough to be able to make a difference, because you'll believe right from the onset that it's a pointless exercise and there's nothing you can do. And this is a program. This is a program that has been very carefully instilled into people, and people have been convinced, mainly through the education system, that authority is real and that the government is all-powerful. But it's a trick, folks. It's a lie. They're not. It's like how you train a dog, folks. I mean, for those people, many people have done this, people who have had a vicious dog, or perhaps a bull or a cow in a yard, and they've wanted to keep it in a certain area. They'll put up a wire, 4 fence pegs with a piece of wire, and run a current through the wire, so that whenever the dog or the cow touches that wire, it gets an electric shock. And you only have to do that for probably 1 day. And then after you've done that, you can put up 4 fence pegs and just run a piece of string between each peg, and the dog and the cow will not go anywhere near that piece of string, because it's convinced that that piece of string is all powerful and it will get an electric shock from it. And you've got this incredibly powerful beast contained by 4 fence pegs and a piece of string. Simple, fear-based mind control. And generally speaking, that's what's been done to human consciousness. And it's a program, folks. People have just been convinced through the education system and through certain experiences in their lives that the government is all-powerful. Because every time you get pushed down a little bit more, you give a little bit more of your power away, you begin to think twice before sticking your head up again. And that's what gives the government its power. But the government isn't powerful at all, folks. In fact, it's just an idea that exists in a book. And in fact, the only thing that gives the government any power anyway is those people who work within the constraints of government who actually believe that the power is real and who believe the system is real. It's all programs, folks. It's all based on people's belief systems. And that's a lot of what the Illuminati, for want of a better word, have done. They have convinced people that they are all-powerful, when nothing could be further from the truth. They're not all-powerful at all. And In fact, everything they have done and everything they continue to do to lock the world down and to lock the human race down only serves to bring about their own demise, because what it does is it exposes the machinations of the control system for all to see. And in doing so, it wakes more and more people up along the way, and that's just the way it goes. The more they try to lock us down, the more people wake up. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy, folks. It's just nothing they can do to stop it. The trick is, though, getting people to understand what is and is not possible and what type of a world we can actually have, because this is a realm of infinite possibility, and the world we could have could be very, very different to the one we've got. And it's only a matter of people rediscovering their power, which holds us back from taking us to where we should be and taking humanity to the heights we have the potential of reaching. You see, in understanding what is and is not possible, something that people are very scared of even considering is the possibility of personal power. And I say scared because they are. People are generally afraid of ever stepping into their power, because very often people don't want to be seen as someone who's sticking their head up above the boards. They don't want to be seen as someone with any authority. And they believe that if they have authority over their own lives, then they're going to draw too much attention to themselves. And people are very scared of drawing attention to themselves. And it is fear, folks. It's fear that keeps us back and holds us back in so many aspects of our lives. And it's fear that holds us back from ever stepping into our power and taking this system on. But really, it's something that we have to do. Now, there's been a lot of work recently. There's been a lot of work that's been done by a lot of people over a lot of years towards exposing this system. I mean, a lot of people have made some pretty good progress in doing so, and it's been a learning curve for all of us, folks. It's really been a learning curve. Don't think that everybody who's got an idea which isn't quite right is Illuminati and is leading you down a path of disinformation, folks, because very often it's just part of their learning curve. People have realized that there's something wrong, and they're trying to find a way out of it. They're trying to find a way out of the fiction. What they're really not realizing is that the key word is fiction. I've said this to you so many times. Everything that exists on paper is fiction. Everything the government does is fiction. All of the rules that constrain us are all fiction. What we are living human beings, living flesh. We are mankind, and we have the potential to do incredible things. And we've created this whole mess that we're in because we simply don't understand ourselves and we don't understand reality. And it's a program, and it's all been programmed into us. It's all been pushed on us by other people. But we are guilty of taking this programming on. Admittedly, it wasn't our fault a lot of the time. You can't really blame people because people are thrown into this education system. You know, we come into this world as an infant, and we're surrounded by all of this peer group pressure from our siblings, and we're told that this is how reality works, and we're pushed into this education system, and we're convinced that we have to do what it says because otherwise we're going to be in trouble. I mean, the amount of fear-based mind control in the education system, folks. Remember being a little child and how terrified you were of getting those exams wrong, how terrified you were of going home with a bad report card, and what your parents might think of you, and the way your siblings and peers would judge you, and the way your school friends would judge you, the way you'd be singled out at school and made to stand in the corner, or the terrible things these teachers used to do to the kids to break their spirit. Really, when you look at it, folks, it's no wonder that the world is in the state that it's in, simply because virtually everybody in the world was forced to go through that ridiculous and emotionally brutal education system that we were all put through. And it's very debilitating, it's humiliating, it's a terrible, terrible thing to do to a child, to send them to a modern school and have them subject to that type of mental and emotional abuse by people who are supposed to be teachers. It really is quite dreadful, folks. And when you look at that, it's no wonder the world is in the state that it's in today. And that's also why it becomes very difficult to judge people and to judge their actions, because people have all gone through that indoctrination process. And it's because people have been through this indoctrination process that they believe they have no personal power. They believe the system is real, and they believe that it's not possible to make a difference. It's not possible for one little person to make any real difference in the world. What they don't realize is that the world is made up entirely of little people. That's it, folks. Well, the human world anyway, the human social system, our societies, our governments, everything that has been created by man has been created by little people who are simply part of the human race, who have tricked and convinced other people into believing that they have authority over them. When really the only person who has authority over you is yourself. But you have to know yourself before you can live that type of a reality, before you can live that type of a life. Unfortunately, many people believe they are their name, and so they function as a corporate chattel, and that is what most of their life is about. It's running on the treadmill, trying to keep their head above the ever-rising sea of self-generating debt that they are forced to live in. And a lot of the reason why they never really find themselves and find their power or see the system for what it is because they are forced to run so hard on that treadmill every day of their lives. And one of the most difficult tasks we face is waking these people up, or even getting these people into a situation where they have time to consider the information that's being offered to them. That's why it's good to start community projects, folks. This is why I've said that you've got to find what is going to work in your community, something that's going to break down the barriers in your community, something that is a common interest, and involve your community in it, just to break down the barriers between these people, just to get to know your neighbours. I've always thought that things like community gardens are a great place to start because everybody eats and you get to grow your own food. You get to have good, healthy, organic food as a result of the garden. You're out there, outside in the sunshine. You've got your hands in the soil. You've got your hands in the dirt. You're getting into contact with the earth again. It's a really good thing. It's a really good thing for people to do, and it's a very connecting thing for people to do. And it's a great way of breaking down the barriers with people. But even if it's just a chess club or a local night or something where you sit around playing cards, just something where you're going to be able to be in a situation where you have conversation going on and you're going to be able to inject interesting topics into the conversation and find ways of cracking that shell, just getting people to think outside of the box a little bit. There's got to be something, folks, that's going to work. And even if you're not able to bring information to people straight away, at least find some way of getting to know these people and striking up some sort of a friendship with these people. Because you need this friendship, you need this companionship, you need the support of people in your community. You need to at least know these people. You need to know their first name. You need to be able to have a conversation with them, know who they are. Because you need these people to stand shoulder to shoulder with you, and you want to be able to stand shoulder to shoulder with them. And this is not really possible with people you don't know. Well, it's possible, but it's not as good. It's not as rewarding. You don't feel as confident because you don't know who the people are who are standing either side of you. If you know these people and you've got strong ties in your community, then you have a powerful community that can stand up against this system because you have the numbers to do so. You know, any empowered community that knows each other and respects each other can stand up against any regulation that's put on them by local council. And if you had an entire city which was on good terms with each other, then there is absolutely nothing the government that controls that city would be able to do that the people didn't want. You know, the strength of an empowered community is the most powerful force that exists in the battle that is being waged against this system. And if we can find what it is that is going to break down the barriers with our neighbours so that we can stand together as one united people, we'll change the world in a day. So even when you are getting to know your neighbours and you're trying to spread information, if people aren't open to the information, we'll leave the information for a little while. Just get to know them a little bit first. Help them get to know you. Help them see you as a caring, giving person, because once they realise that that's what you are, then you'll be a non-threatening person to them. And they will open up to you and you'll get to know them a little bit and you'll find what works and you'll be able to bring information to them in a way that they're going to understand. But they're not going to do that. They're never going to be even open to the information if they don't like you to start with. And if you're bringing them information which is challenging their belief system straight off the bat and you've just met them, chances are they're not going to like you because they're not going to like you challenging their belief system. So what you need to do is you need to get to know them first. So find out what common interest you have with people around you and then use that common interest to break down the barriers with these people and get to know these people. Then you can just bring them little snippets of information and help them to think outside of the box a little bit. But don't force information on people. And if they show any interest in the information you're giving them, don't turn on the fire hose and drown them with information. Just give them enough to get them interested, because real truth needs to be realized by the people themselves. That's how you came to the knowledge, folks. There wasn't anybody who convinced you of the way the world works. One day you just realized things are not right. It may have been information and stuff that you got from other people. There may have been stuff along the way, but nobody came up and rammed it down your throat and put it in your face and said, this is how you must think. And it's important that we don't do that and that you don't do that when you're attempting to bring this type of information to people as well. You don't want to ram stuff down their throats. You don't want to tell them that they must think the way you do. You need to open up a doorway for them, a doorway of discovery, so they can realize the truth for themselves. Because that's how it must be, folks. Real truth is always realized. It can never be told. You know, none of us like to be told things. None of us like to be spoken at. We prefer to be spoken with. And something people seem to very often forget is that when you are bringing this information to people, you are challenging their belief system. I mean, it becomes very obvious to you. Once you wake up, once you really step back and see how the world works, the workings of it become so obvious that you just think, wow, I don't know how I didn't see this before. And it becomes incomprehensible that other people can't see it the way you do. But you've got to realize that you didn't always think that way. There was a process that you went through. There was a time when you simply were wandering through life thinking that this was all normal and this is the way the world is, and you never thought about it. It isn't that you thought it was normal, you just never thought about it. You never thought about the possibility that it wasn't normal. You just simply went about your life through the daily grind that you were doing, the daily routine that you got yourself into. You had your work time and you had your little pleasures and you had this and you had that, and you never really thought about it. And you've got to understand that that's the position other people are in, and many people have spent their entire lives never really thinking about it. And they've gone through their lives, they've got themselves to a certain point, and then you come along and you say, well, listen, everything that you have done up to this point has been completely meaningless. You have been looking at reality from the wrong perspective, and that the world is very, very different to what you believe it to be. That's basically what you're saying to people, folks. And this is a huge threat to people. This is a huge challenge to their belief systems. And people take the information in a very, very negative way. When you attempt to bring this information to them, they are very likely to simply reject it outright, offhand, without even thinking about it, because it is so confronting to them that they are simply not able to think about it. And it's a gradual process, folks. The realization is a gradual thing. So you don't want to be walking up to people and simply confronting them about everything they thought was real from the moment that you met them. This is not a good way to wake people up. In fact, it's actually quite detrimental. If you do that to people, very often you will put them in such a state of fear that they will close off completely and they will never ever be open to the information again. And rather than wake some person up, what you've actually done is closed someone down completely and forever. And there is a danger of that occurring if people are too aggressive in their presentation of this type of information. And you've got to be very careful what information you bring to people as well, folks, because there is an awful lot of disinformation out there. There are so many people that are literally trying to lead people down the garden path. There's so many people who are speaking out against anything which may unify the people. And there's other people that are offering systems and all sorts of stuff. So really, we don't need any type of system at all, folks. I mean, we may need some sort of a transitional period to get out of the situation that we're in, but ultimately, we could fix this system. We could simply change things by default were humanity to wake up to themselves. So really that's where the focus has to be, because that's where the root of all the problems is. I mean, all the problems that we face come from government, folks, and the government does this because we are disempowered. We don't know ourselves. I believe that once we do rediscover ourselves, we won't even have to address this system. It will simply fix itself by default. Once people start acting according to moral parameters rather than fictional legal parameters, then it won't have a choice. If people actually start respecting themselves and respecting the people around them, then the system will simply have to follow suit. But people have to realize that the system is fiction and what's important is people. It's just a different perspective. People just have to readjust their mindsets and wake up from the slumber, wake up from the matrix and snap out of the hazy version of reality that they're living in. But again, folks, it's a very confronting thing to bring this information to people. So you need to be very, very careful how you go about it. And that's why the best thing to do before you even attempt to bring any information about the true nature of reality or the way the world is run to people, what you've got to do is you've got to become their friends. You've got to break down the barriers, find out what your common interest is with these people, and do something with these people. Go fishing, go play a game of golf, do whatever it is that you do to socialise, to get to know people, find out what these people do, and do it one day. Let's go and have dinner, let's go and have a picnic, let's go water skiing, let's go down the beach, let's go hiking, let's go watch a sports game, whatever it is that you do. Whatever it is that these people do, whatever it is that's going to break down the barriers so that you can get to know these people, that is the most important step that everybody should be taking in their community. Get to know your neighbours, folks. Get to know the people around you. Get to know the people in the building in which you live. Because these are the people you need to be standing with, and these are the people who you need to stand with you. And so you need to know and respect each other in order for this to happen. Once you know and respect each other, you'll find that natural conversation will come about a lot more easily, and you'll be able to start bringing some of your political views and some of your spiritual views into the conversation and just testing the water. You might find that people are more awake than you actually gave them credit for if you do this, but always test the waters, folks. Don't just come on with an onslaught of information and drown people in it, because it's way too confronting for them and it's counterproductive. It's not going to break down any barriers. In fact, it's going to serve to see that the walls are erected a little bit higher. And this is not what we want. This is counterproductive, and it is the opposite of what we want. So be very careful with how you interact with people, folks, and realize that it's about people. It's not about the information as much as it is about human interaction. That's what we're looking for here. Because that's what we're lacking in our society. I mean, there's so much about this society that is designed to keep people divided, and it's done for this specific reason, folks, to keep people at each other's throats, to keep people judging each other by fictitious parameters, judging people by their social standing or business status, judging people by what they look like, what they dress like, how many rungs they've attained on the social ladder. And it's all fiction, and it's all designed to perpetuate the system. And that's exactly what it does. Keeps us apart from each other. And so the system just functions just fine. So as the system does everything it can to keep us divided, it creates this idea in people's minds that they are powerless. Because, I mean, what could such a disunited community do? I mean, we can't even get people organised enough to agree on what colour to paint the fence. How are we going to get people organised enough to agree what the government should do about any situation? It's kind of created this scene where the situation that we face seems like it's impossible to fix, and it seems like it's impossible for a little person to make any type of difference at all. The problems that we face just seem insurmountable when viewed from a ground floor perspective. But really, they're not insurmountable at all. The issue is that most people don't really understand what the actual problem is. People keep viewing symptoms as actual problems, and they spend their time attempting to put band-aids on the symptoms, but they're not looking at the problem which caused the symptom to manifest. And this is also something that I've gone through a million times on this show, the fact that we only really have one problem, folks, and the problem is the divided state of our community. Because it is the divided state of our community which allows government to get away with what they do, and it is government which enacts the legislation which enables things like coal seam gas to happen and all the problems that we face. It enables the people of our countries and our nations to be stolen from because we are divided. We don't have the means by which to stand up against our controllers because we are disunited. And this disunity is a result of the lack of respect we have for not only each other, but also for ourselves. We judge ourselves poorly because we judge ourselves by parameters which are not our own. And so we don't ever view our lives from a realistic perspective. We think that we're unsuccessful. We think that we're not all we should be because we are judging ourselves according to fictitious social and economic parameters that have been put there by this system. That's where the problems lie, folks. We need to put all of that aside, and it's very difficult. I mean, I've been coming onto the show here for 6 years, attempting to help people put all their stuff down, all the stuff that they have with other people, all their emotional baggage. Put all this stuff down, folks. Stop judging yourself as being dysfunctional. Stop judging yourself poorly because you haven't obtained whatever rungs this system says that you should have obtained. And realize that these are not your parameters. These are not your rules. This is not the pathway that you laid out for yourself for your life. This is a pathway that someone else laid out for you. And they put these markers along the way for you to measure yourself up to. But they made sure that you would never really be able to achieve what you wanted. Or maybe a few people can, a few special people can. Because then that instills the concept into people's minds that some people are actually special. And that some people deserve more than other people because they are able to function better within the parameters of the system, and so we will reward them more. And this, of course, causes other people to judge themselves poorly. And it causes other people to aspire to be like these celebrities, as we label them. You know, these gurus, these external people that we measure ourselves up to, according to the parameters that are given to us by this system. It's a joke, folks. We never get to experience ourselves. We never get to experience the art of our lives, and we judge ourselves according to external parameters. So we don't respect ourselves. And because we don't respect ourselves, we compete with the people around us. We compete for the top position on the top of the pile. See if we can get more stuff and a bigger front door and all the stuff that makes us a better person. And it's all illusions, folks. It's all illusions specifically designed to keep you battling for something you will never obtain and keep you running towards a goal you will never achieve and to keep you from ever experiencing the art of your own life and realizing your own creative potential for simply being an expression of creation, being a vibrant, functional human being. This is what the system has taken from you. This is what it's all about, folks, harvesting that energy from you, harvesting your life from you, making sure that you don't experience your life yourself. Someone else controls it. That's what this is about, folks. That's the big energy harvest that happens. As I've often said, folks, the system doesn't do what it does to steal wealth from people, not physical wealth, not monetary wealth. The wealth that it steals is your life, your soul, your energy, the time that you spend here on this planet, because you are spending that time devoted to the system rather than experiencing yourself. So the question is, of course, what do we do about this situation? What do we do about all this? Well, that's what I've been attempting to share with you for the last 6 or 7 years on the radio, folks, is the need for you to participate. If everybody out there participates in their community at large, then we can make a difference. You know, if you can break down the barriers in your community and get involved with the people around you, you will make a difference. And do things that are going to help you free yourself from the shackles of the system. Like putting in gardens is a great idea, folks. You've got to become as self-sustainable as you can. I've been telling you this for 6 or 7 years as well. Community gardens are a great way to get to know people, and it's great for you as well because it's getting you involved with the earth again, and that's a lot of what we've lost, is that connection to the earth mother. And I think we need to get that back. So doing things like this is a great start, plus it gets you involved in your community. You know, it's so important that we participate in the communities in which we live, folks. This is why I've spoken out against alternate communities so much. I mean, unless you can create an alternate community that is right on the edge of this community and still involves itself with this community, well, that would work. You can create some sort of a working model. But if you're not creating ripples by participating in the community at large, then it's a pointless exercise. Because as I've said so many times, this society in which we live is so corrupt and so twisted and is doing so much damage to the earth that it's caused you to wake up and has provided you with the need to build an alternate community, or at least make some effort to bring about change. So the most dangerous thing you could do, really, would be to turn your back on this system. See, if you create an alternate community which is not still connected to this community, then you're simply turning your back on this system and you're allowing it to continue running rampant, and it's going to destroy the world around you if you don't pay attention. So we don't need to create alternate situations, folks. We need to fix this one. You know, a lot of the stuff that we do in these alternate communities, we can actually do in the community at large if we simply put our mind to it. You know, we go and we get these properties and we try to create this alternate intentional community. But what about in one block of the suburbs? What about if you could break down the barriers with your neighbours between all the houses on your block and create that intentional community within the community in which you live? Imagine if we did that. Imagine if we had one block and everyone took down all their backyard fences so that all of the backyards were connected, and you put in huge veggie gardens and you put in like a huge community swimming pool, it could be almost a lake to do the whole block. You know, you could do something that would involve everybody in the neighbourhood and get everybody involved in an intentional community within this one suburban block. That'd be an amazing thing. I mean, it'd probably be more amazing if you could find one block of people who are actually going to get along with each other well enough to do that, but it is a nice dream to have anyway. I can just envision it in my mind, what that would look like. A suburban block with no fences, big community gardens that serve the whole block, a big swimming area and a park and all that. So you can do it all in one block, just in your backyards by putting them all together, folks. Of course, it could be a little difficult in modern suburbia, I suppose, because we tend to build houses which take up the entire block these days, because people just can't seem to see the benefit of having any yard, because that requires maintenance and they may have to go outdoors and actually get their hands involved in the earth, and people don't want to do that. So it's kind of a weird thing. But it would be a great idea to be able to do something like that. It would be great to see a community that wanted to put it into practice anyway. All of these sorts of things would help, folks. There's got to be something that you can do in your community which is going to make a difference and which is going to push the envelope with your local authorities and show them that you're actually not someone who has to listen to what they say. You're not actually someone who they are able to control. You are expressing your own life in your own way, and you don't need their help to do it. In fact, that's not what you employ them to do. So these sorts of things that do empower the local community but will push the envelope with council are a great idea as well, folks, because it shows to the people around you who are asleep just how much these politicians are attempting to control everything. So by doing these things and creating these intentional type community situations within this community, you can not only empower the people around you and break down the barriers with these people, but you can also demonstrate to them just how corrupt the government actually is. Something everybody needs to understand about government, folks, is that government is not your friend. Government is there to appease you while your life's energy is stolen from you, while your minds are controlled, while your children are programmed. Government is there to dangle trinkets in front of you, to give you a dream of something to aspire to become, something which you will never be, something which is virtually unobtainable. It's there to mould your perception, to mould your ideas, to disempower you, and to make you believe that everything that is being done to enslave you is actually being done with your best interests at heart. Everything is being done by the nanny state, because nanny looks after you and you don't need to think for yourself. Government is there to make sure everything is okay. But it's a lie, folks. It's a lie. And it's people's belief that this system is real and their willingness to comply with this system which has caused all of the problems that we face in the world today. And that's what this time is, folks. This is the big awakening when the system is actually being laid so bare. But we're never going to defeat it if people don't participate themselves. And it isn't even a matter of defeating it. Like I said, once we respect each other, the system will remold itself by default. If everybody within the system started acting according to moral parameters rather than legal parameters, everything would change. So we don't need to fight anything. We don't need to battle anything. We don't need to vote people in or vote people out. What we need to do is to rediscover ourselves and to respect each other. If we did that, the whole system would change overnight. Yeah, that's why we don't really need someone to come along and offer us an alternate system. All we need to do is rediscover ourselves, and the alternate system will create itself out of our newfound state of consciousness. Ideas will simply present themselves to us, and things will naturally change, and things will naturally progress back to a state of empowerment if people suddenly respected each other. That's what I mean. We don't have to collapse anything. We don't have to collapse anything. We don't have to create any type of transitional period. All we have to do is respect ourselves and base all of our actions in moral parameters rather than legal parameters. It's really that simple, folks. Once we do that, then human consciousness will naturally find its balance again. It's just people's belief in the fiction that has caused it to lose this balance in the first place. That's the thing, folks. See, we're just lost in this fictional world. We don't believe we can operate according to moral parameters because there's all this fiction that says we can't. There's all of these rules that are written on pieces of paper which prevent us from doing all of this stuff that we should be doing. But it's all fiction. It's just stuff that people we employ to manage our infrastructure for us made up out of their heads and wrote it on pieces of paper, and they tricked us into actually going along with it all. And of course they have these thugs out there in blue uniforms who they send around enforcing it all the time and pulling up when you're driving all the time and putting little things here and little things there and little checkpoints here and checkpoints there and inspection points there and RBTs here and breathalyzers there, and just letting you know that they have power over you, just to, again, instill that air of authority into people. Yes, the government has authority. See all the stuff it does? All the stuff it gets away with? It must have authority. And so you comply with it all. But really, it's just fiction, folks. If you're operating within moral parameters, you'll find that you can usually circumvent most situations with police officers as well. Because most of these guys do have a sense of moral integrity in there somewhere. Very often they're programmed, very often they're subject to peer group pressure, and very often they're also wearing electromagnetic devices, which I suspect cause them to be quite aggressive. But somewhere in there is usually some spark of morality. Well, within a great many of them anyway. And so if you're operating within respectful and moral parameters, you can usually get yourself out of most situations, folks. It's just that people get aggressive. They want to fight. They want to fight the system. They want to attack it. They want people to go to jail. They want to have this big battle, revolution, something, overthrow the government and replace it with what? When the reality is that we don't have to overthrow anyone or anything. All we have to do is rediscover ourselves to the point that we actually respect ourselves and can respect other people. And stop buying into all the division. Stop buying into all the disinformation. Stop thinking that everybody's against you. Realize that we're all in this together. Humanity's just finding their way through this, folks. And we've been taking baby steps for a long time, but now we're really starting to come into ourselves. And it's important now more than ever that people act respectfully towards other people and act respectfully towards themselves, because that is the key to real change. Respect. And respect for all people, folks, not just respect for your family, not just you demanding respect from other people, but everybody respecting each other equally. And I believe, as I've said so many times, that this comes by default once you really respect yourself. That's the problem, is that people have been given all of these false parameters to measure themselves up to, and so they don't really respect themselves. And therein lies the heart of the problem. And you know, it's this lack of respect for themselves and the lack of knowing themselves that actually causes the problems for people when they're attempting to stand up against authority or stand up against this system as well. Because even though people will put their name down, they'll realise that they're not their name. They'll realise that their licence is not who they are. They realise all of these things about the fiction, but somewhere in the back of their minds, the fear is still there. They are still bonded to the fiction via what is essentially a spiritual contract that they've made. via their inner belief that the system is real. And you need to dissolve these spiritual contracts, folks, because once you dissolve the spiritual contracts that are deeply ingrained into you, these are all programs as well, folks, all of these contractual obligations that you believe you have. You know, many people seriously do believe that they are obligated to follow the rules and obligated to respect authority. And these are spiritual contracts and they're programs. And you need to put these things down, folks. You need to break these spiritual contracts because they're not contracts that you made. They're not contracts that you were a party to in their creation. They're contracts that were superimposed over your mind and contracts you were basically forced into adhering to without your knowledge. But they're spiritual contracts. That's what these mental bonding agreements are, these inner feelings we have, this inbuilt respect for authority that's been programmed into us. These are quite literally spiritual contracts, folks. And you may put your name down, but you are still spiritually bonded to that name. Inside, you still believe you are your name. You've placed too much faith in the removal of the paper. Think, okay, because the paper's not there, the fiction's gone. But if the fiction is still there in your mind, then it's still there, and you are still bonded to that agreement, still bonded to that authority. So it's important that we look at this, and it's important that we be aware of what spiritual contracts we're making, what spiritual contracts we've made, what spiritual contracts we are adhering to. And we need to realize that the ones that were not created by us were created by someone else. They're usually part of a control grid, and they're not something that we need to be a party to. We need to put them down, folks. You know, you'll find that if you can put down your spiritual contracts and really, really discover yourself and truly respect yourself and truly stand in the power of your flesh and stand in the power of your light, the power of your art, and shine your light, you'll find that you can get through most situations because you don't call negative energy in. You just don't do it. You know, some people just don't call it in. Like I said, I haven't been pulled over by the police in probably 10 years, folks. I just don't call this energy in. I don't know what it is, but I just don't call it in. Well, I do know what it is. I think it's the vibration that I hold. And don't think that I'm some guru or some perfect person, because I'm not. I get mad, I get angry, I get annoyed with people, I get frustrated. I have all of the same emotional journeys that everybody else has. Don't think that I don't. I'm nobody special. But I don't feel that I am a party to the contractual obligations of this system. I don't feel that I have any need to respect authority. But again, I don't feel that I have any need to battle authority as well. Because as I said, it's not about a battle. It's about simply changing your perspective. That's what it's all about, folks. That's what the whole thing is about. That's what it's always been about. And that's why there's nobody to overthrow. That's why there's no need to create an alternate system or create anything that will control us. All we need to do is rediscover ourselves, and the step out of this system into something more functional will be a natural progression. It will be an organic occurrence. It will just happen the way it is supposed to happen. Humanity will just naturally progress along the path that we should progress along once we rediscover our power. And that's the important thing, folks. That's what it's all about. And that's what I've attempted to share with you on the show for so many years in so many ways. Just finding ways that will crack that shell and help people rediscover themselves and rediscover the power that they hold. But also to participate in your community at large. Get to know the people around you. This truly is the most important thing that anybody can do, is to get to know as many people around you as you can. Do things for people. They'll do things for you back. They just will, because people naturally want to help each other. We just do this. We're just caring, giving people. And that's what we need to get back, folks. I think it's a natural state for us to be in. And if we were allowed to be the caring, respectful, decent people that we are, then abundance would be a natural result. Abundance is a natural byproduct of respect, ladies and gentlemen, and abundance is the natural state of life on this planet. The only thing that prevents it is the system, and the only thing that perpetuates the system is, as I said, the divided state of human consciousness. Well, look, we're getting close to the end of this show here now, folks. We've got about 4 minutes left. and this is going to be the last broadcast that I do for some time. I've got a lot of work I need to catch up on. I really would like to get the film finished, and I have a lot of upcoming speaking events I need to prepare for. I'm going to be speaking in Portugal at the Boom Festival. If anybody is there, I'm one of the marquee speakers this year. I'm also going to be speaking in the UK. I know there is a speaking date in Lewis sometime in early August, I believe, and there may possibly be some other speaking dates around England while I'm there. I'll also be speaking in Berlin on, I believe, September 5th, and I'll be speaking in Copenhagen on September 20th. That information for those people who may be in the area. And there will also likely be some speaking dates that happen in Spain, Amsterdam and Croatia, but these have yet to be confirmed. And I would like to offer my extreme gratitude to the people who have organised these events and who are flying me to these countries and putting me up and giving me accommodation and all that sort of stuff. It's been a great honour for people to ask me to come and speak at these events. And what I would like to do after I finish in Europe in late September, folks, is if there is any way possible, I would like to go back into Gaza and spend October back in the Gaza Strip. There is a possibility that I'll be able to do some shows or at least do some interviews while I'm in there. But the border is actually open into Gaza at the moment. The border's been open for the last couple of months because there has been a unity government agreement that has happened in Palestine, and this has served to really open things up in Gaza Strip. And this is the first time it's been this open since 2007, so that has been wonderful to see. I did want to get back into Gaza Strip and spend July in there this year, but just couldn't make it happen. But if there is any way at all possible that I can get in there in October, that's what I would like to do. So that would put me back on air again sometime in October from Gaza Strip possibly, or possibly not until maybe as late as mid-November. I'm really not sure at this stage, folks, but it may be quite a long break. But I'll try to keep you posted. I'll do the best I can to get information out to you as much as I am able. I'll post a few things to my Facebook wall, and I'll open up a new blog page on the website so you can follow me around and travel with me on my peregrinations again, the way I did in 2012, and hopefully you can share in the journey with me that way. One of the things I want to do while I'm in Gaza as well, though, is make another documentary. There's a couple of kids that I'd like to focus on while I'm in there, and so I'm going to be filming as much as I can while I'm in there and seeing what I can present to the world. Because even though the situation has improved there, it still isn't what it should be, and we do need to still maintain our focus and maintain our attention on Gaza Strip. But look, that is it for me, folks. Thank you to anybody who has ever helped with the website. Thank you to anybody who's ever made a contribution to the Crow House. If you can possibly help me while I'm away, it would be much appreciated. Things have been very, very tight lately, folks, so if you can help, it is greatly appreciated. I know it's been difficult to donate because PayPal has made it as difficult as they can. That is apparently not PayPal's problem. Apparently it is the Australian Taxation Office that is causing all the heartache for people, but that's just the way it is. You can make contributions directly from one bank account to another, and that's really the method I've had to depend on. But thank you to anybody who has, and if you are able to, contributions are very much needed and greatly appreciated. But that is it for me, folks. I will look forward to speaking to you when I come back on air, and never fear, I will be back for the entirety of 2015. I won't be going anywhere, and I will be back on air before the end of the year. You need have no doubt about that. But I will be doing interviews in the meantime when I'm able, and I'll look forward to speaking to you when I can. Please take very good care until we next join our minds, and never give up on yourself, and never lose hope in yourself, and never doubt your ability to bring about change, because we all have the ability to do this. In Lakesh.